Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in to another Tech Talk video. Today we'll be taking a look at test-driven development. This is a software development practice whereby you write out your test cases first before you implement any code. It is often argued that this practice can be a waste of time and money, while others believe that this reduces the number of bugs in your code and leads to better code quality. So let's take a look at both sides of the argument and discuss some of the advantages and disadvantages of test-driven development. The story of test-driven development begins in the 90s when Kent Beck, an American software engineer, joined Chrysler to help improve and optimize a payroll system that they were developing at the time. During this period, Kent identified several challenges in Chrysler's development process. His work at Chrysler led him to develop a software development methodology called extreme programming, which he detailed in his 1999 book titled Extreme Programming Explained. One of the concepts of extreme programming, or simply XP, is test-driven development. In 2003, Kent published Test-Driven Development by Example, which emphasizes that code should be continually tested and refactored. Test-driven development follows a three-step process of red, green, and refactor. In the red phase, you begin by writing a test case that will fail. You then move on to the green phase in which you write code to pass the test. And lastly, you refactor your code. So for every new feature or functionality in your application, you'll first write out the test cases. To give you an example, let's say we were working on a password reset function. Before we jump right into the code, we first have to identify our test cases. And for this example, let's say our password needs to be at least 10 characters long. It has to be alphanumeric, and it cannot contain the username. Another example could be writing out test cases for your class methods before writing out the method in your class. So let's say you have an employee class, and in this class you need to include a function that calculates the employee's pay based on certain requirements. Before you write out the function, test-driven development advocates for writing your test cases first and following the three steps previously mentioned. Some of the benefits of test-driven development include a reduction in bugs. This is mainly because you're essentially debugging your code earlier. This results in less bugs and defects in production. Test-driven development also saves you time in the long run. Testing your code early on means that there will be less time spent debugging and fixing bugs later. Developing test cases also gives you a better understanding of the requirements and purpose of each feature or function before implementing any code. There are some disadvantages of test-driven development that you should be aware of. Test-driven development can make the development process initially slower due to the fact that your focus initially is on testing. However, in the long run, you save time by not having to focus too much on fixing bugs and defects in your code. Another disadvantage of test-driven development is that when it comes to maintaining your code, you'll also have to maintain your test code. In conclusion, whether you practice test-driven development or not, we can all agree that some form of testing is necessary when it comes to developing software. And for certain applications like mobile applications, it is not necessarily easy to deploy updates when bugs are identified. So having proper test measures in place can be extremely beneficial, and test-driven development is definitely one to consider. Thank you for listening.